we add mobility, security, and further functions to the traditional means of payments. This is what we call mobile enablement. We provide that all over the world. However, the functions differ significantly. In the United States, on the most developed market of the world, we are providing convenience for the shoppers, next generation retail solutions, whereas in the least developed parts of the world, we provide access to financial services in the absence of traditional payment and financial infrastructure.
One of the differentiating factors of Selim is the number of use cases that we have where a user can find benefit in actually making payments or purchasing. From bill payment to donation to money send to m-commerce to e-commerce to paying for parking, tollways. The amount of use cases is key because I don't want to download an app, put in my credit card information only to pay bills. I want to use it for a variety of different reasons, depending on the day, depending on the moment. I want to be able to pay at a restaurant using my mobile phone. If I'm not going to carry my credit cards or debit cards with me, then I better be able to use my phone to make those payments anywhere I am. Selim is extremely flexible in its approach to a market. For example, we can go in to a market and offer a revenue share agreement, a licensing agreement, a joint venture opportunity. So how flexible we are not only in the use cases, but how we work with our partners.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, our respected panelists and audience. Selamat siang, Bapak-bapak dan Ibu-ibu sekalian. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you to the Hunindo Tech 2.0 Business Forum, brought to you by the Embassy of Hungary in Indonesia and sponsored by the Ministry of Communications and Informatics of the Republic of Indonesia, Tongstrom Group, Selim, Telkom Indonesia, RCFM, and Festipay. The digital landscape in Hungary and Indonesia have witnessed a boom in line with global trends and is thus an immensely lucrative opportunity that countries must capitalize on. Both countries have a lot to offer in terms of technological innovations, be it from the infrastructure, financial technology, cybersecurity, startup and innovation management, transportation, and even medical technology fields. At the Hunindo Tech 2.0 Business Forum, stakeholders from both countries are here to share valuable knowledge and experience and hopefully can form strong partnerships in the long term. For further information regarding potential partnership opportunities, kindly visit the official website for Hunindo Tech 2.0 Business Forum at www.hunindotech.id. Without further ado, let us begin with this panel session. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Patota Tambunan. I am the Head of Program and Partnership of Mau Belajar Apa, and I'm delighted to be the moderator today for the Startup and Innovation Management panel session. Among our panelists today, we have Startup Campus. Startup Campus is a global program for innovative business from the idea phase until market entry with an international team and globally extensive partner network. They provide training, education, incubation, international market entry, and investment services in London, Berlin, and Budapest, as well as in other parts of the world. Startup Campus is active in global events with the aim of increasing the visibility of Hungary, Central and Eastern Europe, and connecting the various regional startup ecosystem. Representing Startup Campus today is Greg Gulyas, member of the board of directors at Startup Campus. Greg is official Londoner since 2012 with an extensive network of investors, accelerators, governmental bodies, and startups. Before he was headhunted to run Startup Campus London, he formerly worked in the private asset management for a high net worth individual where he could gain significant working experience in accounting and investment management. His main goal is to make Startup Campus London a one-stop shop for startup the CEE region when it comes to their UK expansion and to help talented individuals to reach their potential in the British capital and beyond. He runs programs that help startups to integrate into the British ecosystem by deepening their understanding about the British way of doing business and by connecting them to local partners and investors. Thank you, Greg, for joining us today. Next on the list, we have European Institute of Innovation and Technology Manufacturing, or EIT Manufacturing. It is an innovation community within the European Institute of Innovation and Technology that connects the leading manufacturing actors in Europe. Fueled by a strong interdisciplinary and trusted community, they add unique value to European products, processes, services, and inspire the creation of globally competitive and sustainable manufacturing. Mr. Adam Sebastian, Regional Innovation Scheme Operation Manager, is a serial entrepreneur and business incubation expert. At EIT, Adam is responsible for the strategy and execution of international startup competitions and mentoring programs in 13 European countries. He is also the co-founder of Covain Service and eTourdesk. Previously, he spent years at international financial advisory firms. Adam is an alumni of UCL, WLU, and International Management Center, Krems, Austria. Thank you, Adam, for joining us today. And then representing the Indonesian government, we have the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy of the Republic of Indonesia, specifically the Directorate of Interinstitutional Relations. We are honored to have Bapak Jubilar Paskoro, Deputy Director for Bilateral Cooperation with us today. Thank you, Pak Jubilar.
Thank you.
Also joining us today is Startup Studio Indonesia. Startup Studio Indonesia is a program initiated by Indonesia's Ministry of Communication and Informatics. This program aims to facilitate Indonesian high-quality early-stage startups that are aiming for seed round up to Series A round investment, particularly ones that have product market fit and potential founders. This program is initiated as a solution to issues faced by Indonesian early-stage founders, namely the lack of resources and the lack of networking access to scale up their business. Mr. Itan, Program Director of Startup Indonesia. Startup Studio.
Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you.
Will be joining us today. Mr. Italo Gani is a serial tech entrepreneur that has been developing several tech startup companies for the past 21 years in Southeast Asia. His expertise in data-driven business activity makes him broadly known in incubating and advising data-centric tech startup. We then also have Kumpul with us. Kumpul empowers ecosystems that enable entrepreneurs. Together with over 50 partners and community leaders across Indonesia and still growing, they run the Startup Weekend Indonesia, an exclusive program together with Techstar Global, the 1000 Digital Startup Program, 1000 Digital Startup Program for the Ministry of ICT as their national coordinator, the Baparekraf for Startup Backup Program for the Ministry of Creative Economy, and also involved in the Ministry of Industry, Startup for Industry. Their company focuses on ensuring that there's access for entrepreneurs outside Jakarta to global mentors and programs. They also give upskill local-based mentors and facilitators in those outlying regions of Indonesia. Representing Kumpul today is Mr. Hadi Otman, Chief Strategy Officer of Kumpul. Mr. Hadi has over 20 years of startup and multinational experience with responsibilities in a versatile portfolio of verticals, including multinationals such as Google, iCenter, Digitaraya, and Asia Ec Forum. In 2008, he helped the Brunei tech startup ecosystem and grew it from 7 to over 30 startups, from which they raised combined more than $5 million US. This was also translated in Google, while also building GBGs in over 50 cities is in under a year. Mr. Hadi, also run design sprints professionally. Our next panelist for today is Input Program. Input Program is a high priority government project financed by the EU. It was established in 2016. The program aims to create and nurture internationally competitive Hungarian tech startups. It intends to facilitate the growth and transformation of the Hungarian startup ecosystem by encouraging entrepreneurs and helping them build sustainable ventures. The Input programs offer 4 core services: training, mentoring, business development, and international market access, to give hands-on guidance and support for startups in validating their ideas, finding investment, developing their products, and entering international markets. Joining us from Input program is Ms. Mari Alcantara, Accelerator in Residence. Mary, a Harvard alumni, has been a key player in the Hungarian startup ecosystem for the last 7 years. She is a founding partner of Tandem Leap, a business management company with offices in Budapest and New York City. She has consulted and mentored for many of Budapest's leading incubation and accelerator programs and is a founding member of the Hungarian Business Angel Network. She most recently led the accelerator program at MKB FinTech Lab, backed by a top Hungarian bank. Mary is currently serving as accelerator in residence at Input, a Hungarian government program that supports startups with international market expansion. Another interesting panelist on board with us today is HIQ Global. HIQ Global mission is to build bridges and create opportunities for innovative world-class technologies and startup solutions to enter international markets. HIQ Global was brought to life to connect world-class potential with capable accelerators and offer state-of-the-art tech solution to valued markets. They strongly believe that by connecting the brightest innovators of startups ecosystem on one hand and global business communities on the other hand, they can promote technology and knowledge transfer along the line of value creation and also bring promising business opportunities to different regions. Representing HIQ Global today is Mr. Adam Juhas. Adam is the founder and CEO of HIQ Global and was previously an UNDP, UN expert on urban poverty reduction, gender policy and public service excellence, a political and international development advisor, and organization development innovator. Having worked at various levels of innovation from enterprise to government, Adam has a deep understanding and diverse experience from the micro level to institutional frameworks and all the building blocks of startup and innovation ecosystem. So that's the introduction of our panelists. So let's start the discussion today. We are discussing about startup and innovation management. And to give a little background of the topic, the growth of digital landscape has been, in Indonesia, has been supported by strong bilateral ties with Hungary, a country well known for its expertise in modern technologies, research, and technical department. The bilateral ties have only grown stronger with regards of the Embassy of Hungary's active economic diplomacy role in Indonesia to promote and open opportunities for business communities in both countries. One such opportunity was the Hunindo Tech Business Forum that was conducted in 2018 with great success. The event saw leading Hungarian ICT companies with presence in Southeast Asia and ready to enter Indonesian market participating. Given the success of this event and supported by the optimistic view of capturing post-pandemic opportunities, the Embassy of Hungary in Indonesia has organized a similar event in 17 and 18 of November 2020. So the objective for our discussion today will be to strengthen bilateral ties between Indonesia and Hungary, particularly through advanced technological solutions, then facilitate networking for Hungarian companies with relevant Indonesian counterparts to promote mutually beneficial partnership, and to gain insight on opportunities and challenges in the field of startup and innovation management. Without further ado, let's start the discussion. The area I will try to moderate by topics and by the panelists. So let's start with the ideas of startup and innovation management, where startup and innovative companies can change the world, but they do need support. They need guidance to fulfill their full potential. Mentor programs, startups, governmental or non-governmental projects can give all the extras of this company needs with helping hand, where they get great ideas can become our future reality. Startup Campus is one of global program for innovative business, from the idea phase until market entry with international theme, with globally extensive partner network, and they provide training, education, incubation, and international market entry in London, Berlin, and Budapest. So, if I may start the question, the discussion, to Startup Campus, what do you think the Europe can offer to an Indonesia startup and vice versa?
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. Only the host can. Yeah, thank you very much. So yeah, first of all, I'm very proud to be a part of this event that celebrates the 65 years of diplomatic relationships between the two countries. That's very important when it comes to bilateral agreements and when we are talking about bilateral ties and collaborations. And I think it also represents that bridges exist and it is worth to build them. And funny you mentioned that I'm in charge of the British office, a British office basically. So I'm running the London one, but I also in charge of Southeast Asia. And funny that I visited Indonesia exactly a year ago. And yeah, we started some conversations with fascinating players. However, COVID-19 slowed things down a little bit. And yeah, so, but this festival also represents that we can overcome these barriers with the power of innovation, creativity, and agility, just like a startup. And to answer your question, right, I think it's very important to highlight and explain what a startup is, because sometimes there's a confusion in the heads when it comes to SMEs and startups. So startup is, by definition, is an innovative business with a global market potential. And when I'm talking about innovative business, I mean the product, the service, or the business model is innovative. So if it's something is innovative, then it can be easily spread across the globe. Therefore, the international mindset must be there in the founder's head. So, you know, this is not an easy process. It's very risky. It takes many resources, financial, human, technical, and others as well. Therefore, it's crucial to determine our motivations and size up our target country in a very deep and effective way. So when it comes to like what can the EU or Indonesia can offer to a startup, it depends on the situation, case by case basis, and it can start with simple nothing to like a very powerful purchasing power and a great customer base. So in generally speaking, the EU is a stable, homogeneous market. It's a bit fragmented. It can seem to be fragmented from an Indonesian perspective compared to the USA, for instance. But still, we have a similar legal system, similar bookkeeping practices, trade agreements. Well, in terms of bookkeeping and the legal system, it's of course it's not the same, but the basic principles are very, very similar. So we have cultural differences, but it's not, I mean, you can live with that, let's put it that way. Yeah. Very important to distinguish between different regions. So we have the Nordics, the South, the East, the West, the Middle, the Central and Eastern Europe together. It really depends how you want to distinguish. But yeah, this is why we set up our offices in London as well as in Berlin. And we also have the Hungarian base as well. Regarding Indonesia, I think it's a very exciting market. It's a home of 268 million people. And it has great achievements in like engineering, manufacturing. However, I still see some room for innovation. And if the startups can appreciate these disadvantages, strengths, and opportunities, and they can play our cards, they can play our cards well, and they can create many impactful things, and it can be a lucrative market for a European startup.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Greg. And then if you want to switch to Indonesian side for the startup studio, and also Pak Jubilar from Kemenparekraf, what Greg said that the tech startup need to have innovative and international mindset. What are the prospects of startup internationalization in Indonesia actually?
Should I answer first?
Yeah, please.
Okay. I think when we talk about the internalization, so there is actually several things happen in Indonesia. I think the growth of startup Indonesia, actually there is this, like the first movement was like 98 to 2000, before the dot-com crash in 2000. There are some startup founders actually before the mobile internet era, and then starting in 2010 when Tokopedia started until maybe 2016, and then there's some slowdown on investment, and then after that 2017 is growing again until now, and the COVID also accelerating the whole startup ecosystem as well. So we saw, personally, I also saw there's actually many people, that Indonesian people, founders that come from Silicon Valley, going back to Indonesia to start their own companies, like, for example, Traveloka, Mocha, the POS company, fintech like Julo. There's all these people that coming back, all these young people that have a great life in US, but they know that Indonesia is very interesting market to be with. So many actually move to Indo and build their startup. And I think all the knowledge that they have from Silicon Valley also create a lot of new knowledge to other programmers in Indonesia. And then like all these unicorn also have like their dev center in India. So for example, the Gojek era, I think before 2016, all the engineers are in Indonesia. After that, the challenge also, when you have an app like Gojek, when you have all this scale, it's really hard to find engineer who has experience like engineer like in India that already handle all bigger startup in worldwide. So it's also, I'm not saying that Indonesian engineers are not good, but maybe they don't have a chance to build like an app on the top of this amount of traffic, and actually a company like Gojek has very super skillful engineer now, like Indonesian engineer. Bear in mind, if I can explain a little bit about Gojek. So Gojek is a bike starting as a motorbike sharing, and the driver are the ojek driver, which is like people who like do taxi, like bike taxi. So all this ojek driver has this China-made memory, very small memory handset, and they need to install an application. So the Gojek engineer need to have this application installed in their device, and that device will be active all day with signal that is not like 4G, sometimes 2G, sometimes 3G. So the design of the application is super efficient. This is not like in Korea and everything is 5G. So the application is totally different. So I think the ability for the engineers to build something for Indonesia is actually something that company like Gojek has mastered. Like other company like Traveloka, also Tokopedia, they need to build this app like Android that works in any Android based like 100% 100 USD kind of Android base, like very low end Android base. So, and then at the end, yeah, all these local engineers are the one who build it, and by a lot of work with all engineers from overseas. In terms of internalization in doing the market going global, I think the one is worth is only Traveloka. Traveloka actually leader in Southeast Asia. They are number one in Vietnam. They are number one in Thailand. They're also very big in Malaysia. They are also opening office in Australia. But was last year, so they're already number one in Indonesia. They are the number one global market startup in Indonesia. But COVID happened, so all this travel industry is going down. So I think I see like all these friends, co-founders that has been coming from overseas and start up the company here, and also being global player. It's happening. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Italo Gani. What about from the Kemenparekraf side, Mr. Jubilar? What do you think is the prospect of startup internationalization in Indonesia?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. First of all, I would like to give all the panelists and also the attendees the background of the creative economy in Indonesia, because we can say that the identification by the government that these creative economy sectors have significant potentials to our economy is still, we started very, very young. We started even in the governmental process. We started in 2000, I think it was in 2009 when the government finally, we have the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy. And then in 2011, we have the Creative Economy Agency. And starting from last year, the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy, we merged these two sectors, because then we also realized that creative economy also supports the development of tourism. If you don't mind, I will give some backgrounds. Could you please enable me to share the screen and to share what has been done by the government to support our startups industry?
Mr. Ari, can help?
No, it's still not.
Okay, let me check. Mr. Ari, can you help? So Mr. Jubilar can do screen sharing, please. Thank you.
So, okay. So, first of all, thank you for having me, and thank you for inviting the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy to attend this important event. This is also marks the 65th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the Republic of Indonesia as well as the Republic of Hungary. So, panelists, attendees, the COVID-19 outbreak, of course, has shaken almost all countries globally and brought a tremendous impact of societies, including changing the course of the economy. The effect of coronavirus has all the industries to lay off many of workers, and the restrictions and social activities also affect the ability of companies or startups. The creative industry and SMEs, which were known as very versatile and adaptable sectors, have also been hindered by COVID-19 social distancing measures. Among of the 17 creative economy subsectors in Indonesia, we have identified some subsectors from which are slightly affected by the pandemic, such as games and application, to severely affected subsectors, namely advertising, fashion, photography, and then performing arts, craft, film, animation, and video. And around the same time, given all challenges and opportunities of the current situation and beyond, the rapid growth of technology-based startup has given us glimpses of hope. Lockdowns have channeled online shopping, studying, entertainment, and working for many individuals and speeding up the change to digital services. Around the same time, businesses are going forward with internal digitization for employees, consumers, and suppliers. For example, increasing the supply chain's visibility, delivering digital learning experience, and supplying customers with new channels. Ladies and gentlemen, beyond the immediate response to the outbreak of COVID-19, I believe a government support for digital technology is also crucial. And the innovation ecosystem now becomes more vital to move the economy and communities through the COVID-19 crisis. As the Indonesian government has seen the vast potential for digitization and innovation to add value of society, the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy initiated a program to boost Indonesia's digital startup ecosystem during the COVID-19 pandemic crisis. We call it Baparekraf for Startup or BECAP. So Baparekraf stands for Badan Pariwisata dan Ekonomi Kreatif or Tourism and Creative Economy Agency, and BECAP as backup or support in English. Then this program can accommodate all Indonesian entrepreneurs to support startups in the creative industry to survive crisis during COVID-19 by providing intensive mentoring activities, targeting early stage startups in 5 regions in Indonesia. So we are targeting the startups ecosystem from Jakarta, Surabaya, Bali, Medan, and Makassar. And the main objectives of BECAP are to strengthening and promoting the technology-based startups and entrepreneurship ecosystem in Indonesia, to providing startups with opportunities to effectively build innovative startups as scalable and sustainable businesses, and to contribute to economic growth and employment by empowering entrepreneurs and to be able to build a sustainable business in time of crisis due to COVID-19. So we are targeting 500 participants of startup from several cities across Indonesia. So there were 20 startups curated from online submission, and then interview processes to join the bootcamp. And at the end of the program, we hope that we can have 40 innovative startups launched from 5 batches from 5 cities in Indonesia. So the final result will be it's like the inauguration of 8 startups of each regions from across Indonesia. As a result, BECAP will take the role to accelerate growing the business and building the ecosystem. And in the light of the second year of Hunindo Tech partnerships, this is an excellent opportunity for both countries to generate more discussion to support the strong commitment of the 2 countries' leaders to boost economic relations through technology cooperation. More importantly, to harness the potential for technology to respond to the crisis effectively. So with regard to the questions of how we internationalize the startups of Indonesia, so yeah, I think it is the good opportunity for us to have more closer ties, bilateral relations between Indonesia and Hungary, because then, as you can see from the backup programs, we still focus on to the incubation process of the startup. So we try to identify the very early stages of startups, and then we give them mentoring with the involvement of some remarkable startups in Indonesia, just like OVO, it's like Gojek and everything. And then at the end, we do hope that those 40 winners, as the final result of these backup programs, they can be fully equipped of how to make them ready to be a global player. So that's the main point from the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy. Thank you, moderator.
Okay, thank you, Pak Jubilar. Okay, then continuing to the topic of internalization of the startup, I want to ask Greg and also Ms. Mary, what are the biggest challenges you think from your perspective on the biggest challenges when startup wish to go to international market, either in the EU region or international market to Asia, America, or Africa?
Would you like to start, Mary, or shall I?
Go ahead.
Okay, well, I don't have a standard answer for that because again, it is case by case basis, but maybe it would be a good start just to use as an example to ask the panelists, like, has any of you lived abroad for a longer period of time, like more than 3 months, or maybe more than a month is enough? Yeah, Mary? I know Adam as well. Okay, so yeah, when you go abroad, maybe for just a vacation, it's very, very. I mean, of course, if you are with your family, then it's easy because you are there for fun. But if you're alone, maybe for studying or working, it can be very challenging to basically find the good places, get used to the social norms and stuff like that. And finding where can you get a nice coffee in the morning or have a nice beer, a good cold beer in the afternoon or evening. Sorry, it depends lifestyle, but yeah, or even in the morning. Some strong spirit. But anyway, so it is the same for a business as well. So if you're going abroad, then you need to understand your market. And this can be very, very challenging. You need to appreciate the cultural differences, the social norms. Again, this is something that needs to be, that can be a bit tricky for a startup, especially because in a startup phase or even in a scale-up phase, the developers are working around the clock. There are different challenges serving your home country, new customers, and so on. Understanding the legal environment, bookkeeping, this is something can be again challenging and costly if you don't get it right. Being authentic, communicating your message and sell your product in an authentic way, but in a way which is tailor-made to your local customers. That's very, very important. Sizing up the resources, again, this can be challenging sometimes. I mean, not sometimes, nearly in all cases I see that managing the resources, whether it's human, the financial, and even your technical resources when it comes to like manufacturing and to serve a new market, this is something that takes time and it requires a kind of skill set and understanding and knowledge. And also the prioritize your task efficiently, again, because everyone is doing a little bit of everything in a startup, and if you don't know who is doing what and who is in charge, then it can be very tricky for you to manage the global expansion efficiently. And what we also see is that the motivations are a bit unclear, and the whole expansion process is very impulse driven, if you like. So maybe a startup go to Finland for a festival, for a startup festival, and there is a promising handshake with an investor there. When they come home to Hungary, they say, "Oh, we need to go to Finland because that's our market, because the feedback was very good." But maybe the next week or next month, they travel to China or Indonesia, say for instance, and they're on the promising handshake with maybe a potential supplier or customer. Then, oh, we need to go there because it's even bigger market and it's much better than Finland, and we need to be there because that's our big target market. And that was the reason actually why we set up our offices across Europe, just to have them in a system in regards to the market selection. And also that's the reason why we are present in the US, Israel, Southeast Asia, and also in India through our partners. Because when they come to us, and I'm in charge of the London office as well, and they say, well, London is our big market because we did the market research and we found out that we can be cheaper. Well, okay, maybe you can be cheaper, but did you know that you need to compete with Ukraine, say, for instance? Have you checked other regions? And then, I can use my network and help them to manage this process efficiently. Being flexible is also a problem when it comes to the strategic thinking, because sometimes when it comes to the global expansion, they have a set plan, and strategy is something that that must be flexible. So you need to react for the different circumstances, and this mindset is not present in every cases. So that also can be a challenge. Yeah, so to overcome that, that's the reason why we structured our program. So say, for instance, last year when I visited the region, we found out that when it comes to market expansion, the same applies to Indonesian startups regarding the target country selection. And we created a program which is called Discover Europe, which introduces them Europe from the east to the west, so from Hungary to London. And this is currently running. We do it with Magic. It's a part of the Malaysian government. Basically, we found that the same challenges apply, and education is the key to overcome these barriers.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. Maybe you want to add?
I think you need to unmute Mary as well, because we cannot unmute ourselves.
Yeah, sorry. I have my kids running around, so that's why I'm muted. I'm used to being able to mute and unmute myself all the time. But so thank you for the opportunity to be here, and thank you for the question. I agree with everything that Greg has said. Actually, this was going to be similar to what I had put together for this. So I think a few things. So mindset, I think, is very critical. So that's a big challenge, and I think it's really captures a lot of what Greg was talking about in terms of being able to think global from day one, first of all, having kind of a structured plan, but that's also able to pivot and adapt and make some changes if necessary. I think what I have seen is that a lot of startups try to do this either too early or without enough funding to support them in the process. I think those are issues because, a lot of times I've seen the same thing. You go to a conference or you have some initial traction in a new market and you feel like, okay, I'm going to put all my eggs in that basket and try to get out there and do something. And, maybe they send a person over for 6 months, but that person is completely alone. They have no support, and they will run out of money before they have time to actually build up a sales pipeline and actual traction there. So I would say another thing that's important is having the right people and partners around you. So just like Greg was saying, when you move to a new country, you need time to figure out, how the healthcare works, how all of these things, nuts and bolts. And a lot of times what's the most helpful is if you have a friend who can help you go through that process. I think very similarly at Input, this is what we're trying to do through a combination of activities. But I think the most important here that I would highlight is our Smart Landing program, where we have a network of partners that we work with all across the world in 12 key markets, who really can take startups in and show them around and be a shepherd for them in a new ecosystem. Because every ecosystem has their own blend of experts and professionals, legal, accounting, design thinking, IT, everything that you could need and plug into. And we see our role really as a facilitator in pooling these resources and connections together and helping make those available to startups. And that's why we're excited to be here today to strengthen our relationship with the Indonesian ecosystem. There's a lot of familiar faces here. I'm happy to be seeing all of you. And I think, that's what we have to do. We all have to work together. Greg also mentioned this, tapping into your network to help companies where you can. I think it all comes down to people. And so I think, the biggest challenges to me are, again, just to kind of wrap up, mindset and finding the right connections. Because if you have that, you can solve a lot of these other issues. You never can have a perfect plan, but if you have the right people around you, you will get good advice on what to change and what to focus on and how to make those decisions and hopefully get to the next level. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary. What a wonderful insight. Okay, now I want to continue with from Indonesian side. How can we build a bridge and connection between Southeast Indonesia, Southeast Asia, and the other markets such as EU and Hungary in particular, and how we can develop the suitable environment, if I may say so, to find the right partner, to nurture the right mindset, and what how the common paragraph, maybe Pak Jubilar can give us insight about this issue, and maybe Mr. Hadi from Kumpul, if the European startups want to enter Indonesian market, how we build the suitable environment to find the right partner and build the right mindset. Please, Mr. Jubilar, first.
In the microphone again.
Yeah, Pak Hadi, perhaps you would like to go first, and then I will share the experience of Backcraft when we had the boot camp and as well as all the selection process of Backcraft.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Pak Jubilar. To be honest, I think I actually had this question on an ASEAN panel as well about startups expanding into Indonesia. I think the first thing that everybody should do as a startup or a founder is really come to the market that they want to come. So in this case, come to Indonesia, experience it for themselves. As Greg mentioned earlier, don't go there looking at it as a market first, but come to Indonesia as someone who wants to see what it's like to live there, to experience what an Indonesian lives like, how we eat, on the streets, the best food. I miss street food. The people that connect, how people do their daily lives. It's interesting because if you're, as a founder, you're expanding into Indonesia, you need to understand what is the culture like, what is the economy like, what is the daily behavior. So when people say street food, you already automatically assume like, oh, we have to bring cash, we have to pay. No, in Indonesia, you can pay with your smartphone. That's one of the amazing things that even street food in other developed countries, you may not be able to pay with your smartphone. It's one of the small things that may make a difference as you're expanding there, because culture, economy. I think Pak Jubilar mentioned earlier that yes, we're doing. The government has done a lot of things in order to improve from the not just to nurture startups, but also example from the Ministry of ICT as well, to make sure the infrastructure is ready, and so it's actually quite a place where the startup has to decide, as a founder, when you enter in Indonesia, what do you really want to do first, by understanding the culture first. Then there's quite a number of programs that then you decide, okay, who should you meet? And of course, there's people like ourselves at Kumpul. We have people from the ministries, like Ministry of Creative Economy and Tourism, of course, the Ministry of ICT, and then of course we have got like Pak Italo at the Startup Studio, who always takes his time to meet startups as well. I know he makes time for them as well. So there's a lot of people that a startup founder has to meet and talk to first before they decide to go into Indonesia. Kumpul, we have a network of over 60 different spaces across Indonesia, and there's a lot of international startups actually coming in and figuring out like, okay, if we're a startup, we should meet other startups, and where better to meet them than in a space, a co-working space. And that's one of the things that we also have been like trying to find a way to provide to international startups coming in. So in this case, if Hungarian startups want to come into Indonesia, that would be an interesting area. I hope that answers your question. Perhaps Pak Jubilar wants to add.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Pak Hadi, and thank you, moderator. First of all, I would like to share some experience from Backup that, as I mentioned earlier, that Backup, we implemented some of the programs in Backup. One of the programs is bootcamp as well as the in-depth mentorship. And for the bootcamp, it is a 3 days bootcamp, and we conducted a workshop, a full day of workshop to give startups the tools and practical skills, and also to have to expand the knowledge with regard to problem definition, market fitting, as well as financial projection. And the second day of the bootcamp, we usually we conducted the mentoring, where each team will be supported by one mentor, brainstorm certain topics such as product development, market analysis, unique selling point, cost, and revenue stream. And then on the third day of the bootcamp, on the mentoring session, there were one-on-one sessions to brainstorm the technical aspect of content, and also startups to also trial fit with their mentor. And for the team meeting, 12 to 15 teams reach up to showcase their startup in front of to 5 judges. Each startups will get feedback, and then from the 20 startups in every region, and then we selected 8 startups from one region, and they will continue to in-depth mentoring. So in one-on-one mentoring, they had the one-on-one session to give startups exposure and insights that help take the startups to the next level. So what I was trying to say that is that we have the ecosystem, and then the ministry play the role to get into the startups and then equip them with the knowledge of how to make their products or their products to be more internationalized or be the global player. And as it is mentioned by the moderator or other panelists, that we perhaps it is very interesting to see that Mary, you have the smart funding programs. So perhaps one of the Hungarian company, you can also get involved into the bootcamp as well, or in-depth mentoring. So by the time we already filtered the startups, the young startups of Indonesia, and then you can give us more knowledge with regard to the industry climate, with regard to the demands of the markets, and with regard to any other aspects that so these young startups can be a global player. So that's what the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy has implemented in recent years. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Jubilar. Next, I want to discuss about the role of corporation to engage with startup, because once we understand the mindset, then we not talk about the technology. So maybe I want to ask to IT manufacturing, what is the most suitable way for companies or corporates to engage with startups, and maybe how should we approach it? Should we engage more with startup with mature idea but less disruptive technology, or the more mature idea, the less mature idea, but very, very disruptive technology? What do you think about it?
Thanks so much for the question. It's a pleasure for me to be here. So congratulations to all the panelists. I really like the conversation so far. The first one, so how to, let's say, cooperate with startups. I think it is very problematic from the perspective of a bigger corporation to find the ways how they can, let's say, immerse the technology which were created by their mentored startups. I think it is a pretty common case, and I see some really, I saw more bad examples than good examples, which means that even if there was like an incubator which was run by if it in one particular situation, I know a fintech incubator which is run by a bigger bank, and it's for the bank, it's almost impossible to somehow take advantage about those innovations which were created inside of that incubator. So I think first, if I was a corporation, I would try to be sure that we have the capacity to somehow build those created innovations into our, let's say, strategy in the long term to take advantage about those activities that we realize within that incubator. So this is probably the most important part. And not quite recently, but there's a book which is about the money and the magic side of creating innovation. It's important to have the capacity and not the innovativeness. So both are important, which means that if we have an innovative idea which is disruptive and let's say it is relevant for a startup, it might not be relevant for a bigger corporation, because the bigger corporation has already, let's say, given mindsets, they have given procedures that they follow. So it's almost impossible to, let's say, turn a car manufacturing company into an aerospace agency in 3 years. So regardless how innovative or how relevant the idea that they want to implement, they need to be sure that as an organization, they have the capacity to build up that product line. They have the capacity to build those, let's say, new procedures into their everyday life. The other thing is, what I believe is really important, to think in a holistic way. So if I was a corporation, or let's say a strategist at a bigger corporation, I would definitely try to have this open innovation strategy, which means that innovation, disruptive innovation, might not come from the most, let's say, obvious direction. You always need to be sure that you have this holistic approach and you don't only consider one segment, which is the most relevant one, but you try to consider your business from a way more holistic way, which means that, in case, just as an example, for car manufacturing companies, I think it is pretty obvious that they need to consider a future when people will not be willing to buy cars for themselves and cars will be run by operators. So they need to consider how they can serve in the further future those operators who will be their customers. And this one is a relatively obvious situation, but I think this is very common. It's a very common case in many of those bigger corporations which exist and successful right now, that they need to be holistic in order to, let's say, need to think in a way wider variety than like consider way more sectors that can disrupt their market.
Okay, thank you. And then I want to ask as well to Mr. Adam Juhas from SIQ regarding the startup collaboration with corporates or companies, and what is actually the most important problem with startups? Mr. is already said from the corporates, they need to have the right mindset, the capacity, and maybe the bigger companies couldn't really tap into the more innovative ideas from startup. But from the startup side, what is the most important problem that you need to tackle first, and then how from the startup side to engage with the companies? What is your perspective on that?
Well, first of all, I would like to say hello to all the panelists. Very good discussion so far. I appreciate the opportunity and the invitation. The question is very good. And I think Mary and Greg already covered a huge amount of ground in terms of what are the challenges for internalization. The basics are already there and it was discussed. I think what is more important is what Adam was talking about just now, the corporate side. I don't think that the problem is actually with the startups.
Okay.
I don't think that the startups should find a solution for all the problems and should go alone and trying to find their markets, try to find the right partners in the markets and try to strategize and, you know, put all the puzzle pieces together. It's not the supply side where we should be focusing on, but I think it's the demand side. And the demand side, you have two very important players. On one side, it's corporations, MNCs, and the other one is the government and government agencies. Government agencies are enablers, facilitators. They provide the right channels and the right platforms. Yep. They make the whole process consumable for both startups and MNCs. Imagine a huge corporation. They have millions of things that they have to focus on. They have their internal processes.
They have different kind of disciplines and divisions and so on and so on, lots of people working there. And there comes one startup knocking on the door. Hey, I have a disruptive technology. What do they do about it? They have millions and millions of startups and other vendors and suppliers approaching them, trying to sell something. So our approach, and I think maybe a slightly more productive approach to internationalizing startups, is to focus on the demand side first before we are talking to startups and talking about the supply side. And the way we do it, a very good example, and it's a recent example as well, we are working together as an ecosystem partner with the Singaporean government, two of their biggest organizations, EDB and ESG. And just last week, we had Singapore Europe Innovation Partnership Forum. The whole event was demand-driven. So it's not the usual startup competition where startups pitch for dead money prices or a pat on the shoulder. It's not VCs that they were facing, but actually 20 plus multinational corporations, some of the bigger ones in Singapore and some major global and regional players. And when the pre-selection happened, or after the pre-selection happened, the MNCs took over. And from them, at that point, they were selecting and they started interacting with the startups. And in the final, it wasn't just one category winner. I'm not even sure if there are winners in this competition, but there were 50 finalists, and the 50 finalists now have an opportunity to talk to 20 plus MNCs, or at least the relevant ones to them, on long-term cooperation. So rather than trying to, pick up startups and smart them and soft land them and take them on the hand and take them to the lovely beaches of Bali and introduce them to the local context, which I think is very, very important for them to understand the local context. But before we do that, we should actually ask our partners in Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, or for the Indonesian side in V4, Poland, Slovakia, Czech Republic, Hungary, or wherever whichever country or region you are targeting, how can I help you? What can I do for you? What are the bottlenecks, the pain points? Give me a precise problem statements, and I will do my very best to find you that disruptive technology supplier, vendor, or startup, or whatever you need in the way it is consumable for you. So we have a very different approach. For us, it's not about scale. We are not interested in working with hundreds and hundreds of startups. In our portfolio, we only have 36 projects and maybe in the pool some 60 plus startups. But we only engage them and only engage our partners when we already understand how and where that connection can be made, the matchmaking between supply and demand, and then we bring the startups on board and start preparing them for the whole process.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Adam. Very good insight and cooperation with Singaporean government. And then I then want to shift to Indonesian government with Mr. Ito and Pak Jubilar. What should the government do to encourage the right type of collaboration in setting the right type of platform and program, and what is the plan for Kominfo, let's say, from Startup Studio program? Mr. Italo?
Okay, sorry, I've been unmuted. Yeah, so maybe if I can share a deck, do you mind give me access to share screen? I can share you the experience of building Startup Studio Indonesia. So in the Kominfo, there is several program in terms of building startup. I was also one of the one that started in previous minister Pak Rudiantara. There's a program called Nexicon. So Nexicon is a program that to help the later stage startup, like B round above, to get like more sizable kind of investment, like 20 million above. So we started Nexicon in November 2017. Nexicon was founded by Pak Rudiantara, Pak Tom Lembong as well, and then Nadim as well, me and William Tokopedia, and several other startup founders. Yeah, because we aware that for when the startup, like when they want to access like bigger round of investment, there's a lot of factors that they want the investor need to decide, like is Indonesia is a good place to invest, how to invest in Asia. So in 2017 we create this program. We create like great event, like a very special event between the VCs and the founders. The last event was 2019 before the COVID. We bring like 100 something VCs and 100 something founders, and it's like a matchmaking. The event was in Bali purely, and actually from that event generate a lot of investment to Indonesia. That's one thing for the for the later stage startup. And then for the early stage startup, there is Pak Hadi who built this Seribu Startup, a program that to create awareness to many cities, roadshow to many cities to create awareness about that people can start his own career by building startup. And then after that, Kominfo also worked with me to build this program called Startup Studio. So Startup Studio actually is focusing the one that already have an angel round, they already get the product market fit, and then they want to do like series a seed round, or the one who get the seed want to go to A. Yeah. So the program itself, it actually started like mid this year. There's 668 participants who register. From this 600, we select, there is 218 that has a good startup. From 218, we select 40 startup. And then for 40 startup, we create like a curated team. There's Wilson Cuaca from East Ventures, one of the team. Pak Samuel, the Dirjen Aptika, also one of the team, and other team member from Kominfo. And then we choose 20. So there's this 20 startup that are being chosen. The program actually will end next week because it's the three months program. Yeah, and the process of this startup, actually, we are not doing any workshop. We are doing any circus, fully brainstorming, no classes. So actually, we bring almost 60, actually 56 founders as a coach. So like the founder of Sociola, one of the one they just closing $58 million like a month ago. The founder of Mocha, the one they just acquired by Gojek early this year, $150 million. Hero, the founder of Walex, a global remittance, they got funded by Ant Financials. And then Moses, one of the first Indonesian startup that graduated from YC Combinator. And all these 20 startups get coached one by one by all these founders. So because we believe all these startups are the one that ready to start scaling the product or finalizing the product market fit stage by coaching directly with all these founders. So it's like a whole 3 months coaching with 53 founders. And also a high-end product person, like the head of product of Tokopedia. So the program was accelerating really, really good. And then the last 2 weeks, we do like matchmaking with other 40 venture capital. So venture capital, like focusing that early stage, like East Ventures, Digital Garage Japan, Ganesha Japan, Mongsil Singapore, Golden Gate Singapore, Jungle Venture Singapore, and other local like GDP, there's 40 VCs and adding more VCs coming. Actually, more VCs actually coming. So this is the program that has been running from the Kominfo. With this program, plus I think Backcraft also doing a great job in building, and other ministry office like Kementerian Perindustrian also. I think now with this Indonesian government that Pak Jokowi built like very want to focus to build the digital economy becoming something very, very interesting. Yeah, I think I've been in this tech industry since '98, but for the past 2 years, on the past two presidents, which is Pak Jokowi, both Pak Jokowi, we see that the government now are more agile and more active in building digital economy. And I think if in the context of collaboration with a country like Hungary, so I think one of the challenge also, Indonesia is not famous for very hardcore engineer. We have more startup, and we need more hardcore engineers. Not like general in hardcore engineers. So I think you guys has one of the best talent in Eastern Europe. And the problem when VC want to invest in new startup, they also concerned whether the startup can fulfill the technology that they want to develop. So I think I've been working closely with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs actually. Pak Mahendra, the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, actually is one of the person who do the keynote of in Startup Studio Indonesia, because we see that the collaboration with other countries is very important, and Indonesia is going to be like one of the biggest economy in the world in a couple of next years. And also in ASEAN, actually Google Temasek Bain just released a report like last week about the COVID impact. So the growth of digital economy in Indonesia is actually very interesting. And I also agreed with Adam as well, that there is a lot of local problem, and I disagree that if we cannot replicate the idea coming from other countries, Indonesia has their unique problem. And amazing startup like Tokopedia, for example, you can actually buy a product and deliver in e-commerce and deliver in 3 hours. I don't think in New York you can buy a product in e-commerce and deliver in 3 hours. Amazon is always, oh, it's like Prime. There's no Prime. Tokopedia gives in 3 hours. I need a charger for my phone. I go to Tokopedia. In 3 hours, somebody will send me to my home. That actually how, and the consumer becoming very, very advanced. So all my friend that now is moving to Europe, I miss Tokopedia. Amazon here in Europe cannot deliver in 3 hours. So I think that we actually already drive the consumer to level of service. Like GoFood, you can buy any food, very interesting food. And all these Indonesian people who move abroad, even to Singapore, they can't have this kind of level of service like GoFood. So I think with this speed of the government, like becoming, there is very, very interesting startup coming in. And I think by collaborating with country like Hungary, we can also find to strengthen the human resources, especially in engineering. Yeah.
Okay, terima kasih, thank you, Mr. And we are approaching the end of our discussion for this session, unfortunately. So to all panelists, I would like to hear closing remarks, and please explain less than 2 sentences on how should we approach other ecosystem and ecosystem players to build network of smart landing pad, to build a landing pad in Indonesia or in Hungary or in London. How should we approach the ecosystem and ecosystem players around the world? Please, maybe we can start from Mr. Adam Sebastian. Oh, Miss Mary. Miss Mary, you want to start first? Yes, please. Yeah. Hello, can you please unmute it?
Okay, yes, hi, thank you. So thank you everybody for the opportunity to be here. I really enjoyed the conversation. So quickly, I would say that the way that we can help connect other ecosystems and pool our resources is exactly events like this. So it was really a pleasure to be here and listen to all of you. I learned a lot about Indonesia. This was really interesting, especially what you were saying now at the end, Italo, about some of these different services and the speed of delivery. I think it's great to understand the differences between our markets and how we can capitalize on those and build and share the best practices. So with that, I'm happy to connect with all of you again later on. I think there's a lot of touch points that we just got started on, and I'd love to learn more, especially on the topic of mentoring. It's not something that we had time to discuss today, but I know that there's lots of programs going on, and I'd love to plug into what you're doing with Backup and share our best practice and input. We were recognized with the UN Best Practice Award in 2018 for our mentoring program, so I'd be happy to share our experience and how we can work together on that. So thank you to everyone. I really enjoyed this session today, and I'm happy to connect and develop our ecosystems together further in the future. Thank you all and take care.
Thank you, Ms. Mary. Okay, maybe from Adam Sebastian. Mr. Adam, please.
Yeah, I also really enjoyed this conversation, and I totally agree with Mary that these events definitely help to connect different innovation ecosystems. I can also agree with the fact that if you wanna, let's say, go into a country first, you definitely need to immerse yourself into the local culture and have a better understanding of that market. I think this is pretty, like based on what I saw, I think this is one of the biggest problems that companies go there without really considering that whether they have a good chance to succeed in that particular country. So I think that's probably the most important, let's say, takeaway. Immerse yourself into the local culture and really try to consider whether you have good chances to succeed in that international market before you start to really act and start to invest into that market.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Adam. And the other Mr. Adam Yuhas, please, if you want to share your insight.
All right, I'm on mute. So thank you very much. I would like to thank all the panelists for this lively and very informative discussion. To be honest, at the end of this session, I kind of feel like that I could go on for another day or two, just continuing these discussions. There's so much to talk about, and it's fantastic to have this opportunity and to have platforms like that where we can connect and exchange ideas. I don't want to highlight any particular point from the discussion, that 2 sentences that you asked me to do, but I would be more than happy to continue with the discussion, not only with our Indonesian partners on the panel, but also our Hungarian partners, although we do know each other. But I think there were so many interesting points made during the conversation. It would be worth further exploring some of those points. So thanks very much. Do you appreciate being part of this panel?
Thank you, Mr. Adam. Next, we would like to hear from Greg. If you want to share your insight on how we approach the ecosystem going forward. Ari, could you please? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah. So for this question, I have an exact answer. So we are doing this since 2016. So we developed the framework, a 3E framework, which is educate, experience, and expand. So we do not really believe in just organizing travel trips. And when it comes to global expansion, we like to provide some more detailed hands-on support for a longer period of time. So that's our kind of USP. And yeah, but definitely before we do that, the first 2 E's are very important. So educate and experience. So educate, these events like this kind of events like what we had today, research programs, mentoring, chats and competitions are very important. Experience when you actually go there, if it's possible. Maybe one day it will be again. And the expand is when you can actually soft land to another country. It's always a minimum 3 months 3 months program, if you like, but it's more tailor-made. You cannot really do it in a standardized way because every startup is unique. And I think these differences when it comes to from a country to another really need to be appreciated. I also enjoyed the conversation today, and I absolutely want to reach out to the Indonesian partners because I already know the Hungarian ones. And yeah, it was a great conversation. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, great. And then, Mr. Hadi, please share your insight on how should we approach the ecosystem.
Hello. Okay, so for me, I'm just going to reiterate, I think, experience for yourself going into the system. For us, I think for Kumpul, it's always been a little bit easier because we have access to a global network of hubs as well as startups. We're very closely linked, for example, to or even the Google for Startups network. And we get a lot of startups also from other networks coming in and saying, hey, how do we move into Indonesia? So for startups that are interested to come into Indonesia, either they should reach out, they should DM even on Instagram. We have social media, we have Kumpul social media. I think Startup Studio also has a very active Instagram. It's very good for them to. I mean, they should be looking for the local startup ecosystems in every country. So we do have that activity on both social. We do events like this as well. So I don't see why it should be a barrier anymore, especially in today's very digital world, for startups not to be able to link up.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hadi. Mr. Italo, please do share your insight on how should we approach it, the ecosystem going forward.
Yeah, I think this kind of events should be done on a regular basis, but I think this conversation actually very, very short. So let's keep in touch, and more than happy to invite you guys. Actually, Startup Studio program will end next week, and there's this like kind of closing event. So if you guys interested to know, I'll more than happy. Please keep in touch. I'm more than happy to ask my team to invite you guys. Actually invited all the founders will be doing like 5-minute pitch, and all the coaches also invited, all the VC also invited, so you can see the whole ecosystem, who's are the founders. And also we create this YouTube channel. There's William sharing about his knowledge about people and culture, Kevin, the CEO of Gojek, John, CEO of Sociola, Rama, the founder of Firebox. So, and it's interesting concept that, hope that actually I've been talking also with the foreign affairs to be all the embassy in Indonesia around the world should be like the gate for every country to be in touch. So if we can also explore to work with that embassy, because I think the Indonesia now is very famous with all this growth of digital economy. The foreign affairs, Ibu Retno, the minister also want to be part of empowering the digital economy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Italo. Let's see if Mr. Jubiler is still with us. No, I think he's already on his way to the airport. Mr. Jubiler, are you still there? Yeah, I think he's on his way to the airport. Anyway, that's all the time we have for today's panel session. Thank you very much for all the panelists, for your insight and your time and your cooperation. Let's keep this conversation going, because as all of us know, this event is just like one step, one point, meeting point. And we need to keep our conversation going to know more about Indonesia ecosystem, about the Hungarian and Central and Eastern European ecosystem in general. And yeah, thank you very much. I am Patota Putra. Thank you, Hunindo Tech Organizer, and see you on the next session. Thank you.